Thank you. All right, I take it away. So, how do I? Okay, all right. Well, dear participants, dear Kun Piraya, sorry, the name of your dean is gone, but I didn't catch the name, but that's okay. Dear ICOMOS members and dear students from Silpakorn University. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you very much to invite me to participate to your workshop over Bangkok and Thailand Shared Heritage. I feel very honored, and I want to deeply thank all the people from ICOMOS or ICOMOS Malaysia, particularly IT and Romeo Carabelli in his faraway France, where I come from. Both of you included me in your activities, so I really appreciate that. You have all looked for the past few days at the shared heritage that Thailand has. From that point of view, Thailand, as you could discover during your last few days walking around Bangkok and Ayutthaya, is a unique example of a true sharing heritage country in Southeast Asia. And I will highlight why it is a unique example in a few minutes. Outside Southeast Asia, effectively, only one country could be also kind of a special shared heritage country, and that's probably Japan, but not to such an extent as Thailand is. Okay, how do I go to the next one? Oh yeah, all right, done. Say, frankly, I'm not a geek. So anyway, however, a few of Thai and foreign travelers who are coming to Thailand do have an idea about how Europe has been important in the development of Thailand and in the identity of Siam 100 years ago. What makes this architectural journey so unique? In contrary to other countries, I have to highlight it again, but it's not a consequence of European powers seizing a country and turning into a colony. So that's very important to remind that. It was more what I would call a matter of realpolitik. On one side, Thailand, Siam at that time, signed commercial treaties and negotiate borders with European powers to preserve as much as possible of the territorial integrity of Siam. But in parallel to that, Thailand decided to embark into what has been there the most incredible public relations exercise of the time. Okay. What is important is, in fact, to be modern 100 years ago was to look European and to put Thailand at the same level than empires, British and French Empire. Thailand had to look European. This is why the monarchy asked architects, engineers, artists from all across Europe to come to Thailand and turn, notably Bangkok, into a European metropolis like you could see at the same time in Singapore, Hanoi, or Rangoon, or Manila. Forgot that. So luring Europeans to the Siamese court started with King Rama IV, actually, but it was amplified with King Rama V, so from 1880 approximately, and King Rama VI. So from 1860 to 1930, there were some 200 Europeans who came to work for the Siam administration, and they were engineers and so artists I explained about it. They built rails, ports, canals, roads, and also the architects. And this architecture is probably the most visible element of this blending of cultures between Siam and Europe at that time. So actually the Department of Public Works, which was the Thai administration, hired a team of Europeans, mostly from Italy, to develop a new capital, Bangkok. So this idea of a shared heritage has been emphasized by the European Union. In 2013, the European Union delegation in Thailand and the European Union of National Cultural Institutes in Thailand, UNIC, came with the idea of paying tribute to that piece of heritage. And they decided to edit a map of Bangkok and its surrounding to highlight this heritage. The work was done at the time in collaboration with a publishing house I was contributing for, so that's why they chose me. And I was hired at that time. Well, I had a keen interest for architecture, so that's why people asked me to work on that project. So this is what this European Heritage Map and app did in numbers. There were over 65 listed sites on the map covering Ayutthaya and Thailand. In 2014, an app was added, which was able to expand the heritage, the listed monuments and sites to 25 cities across Thailand. And we had over 200 listed monuments and sites. In 2016, there were 4 heritage trails added in Bangkok plus 7 new sites. And then for the European Union, there was a calendar of European cultural events given. So this is what the European Heritage app at the end did. So you had Bangkok with the most, of course, sites. But you can see there was a strong emphasis on Chiang Mai and Phuket. And we tried to emphasize the entire country and show that all across Thailand, there were shared heritage places to visit. So these are the various European heritage trails which were implemented in 2016 and which were around themes that you started to follow. So you had one about royal palaces and mansions. A second one was about religious heritage. A third one was, which is the one that we will visit tomorrow mostly, about commerce and trade. And that was the most important because there are so many. It's going along Chao Phraya River. Chao Phraya River was actually like a highway where all the goods were circulating from the sea into Ayutthaya first and then into Bangkok. And then the last one was transport and technologies, which is very complementary to the commerce and trade. So that was this Bangkok European Heritage Map. You got a map of it already. So the European Union wanted with this to emphasize culture, heritage, and they wanted to communicate it with a large public, but not only. There was a lot of communication done with professionals of the tourism industry because they were thought to be the best ambassadors to raise awareness about this unique heritage. Unfortunately, the program was limited in time. It was only for a 3-year period, so the funds were attributed from 2014 to 2016. So the consequence of this, once it was finished, was that it did not find an echo. No one stepped in to say, okay, we continue with that. So it remains what it was, a nice European heritage map, an app. Obviously, some people are still interested, but nothing has been done further to develop that part. And it's a bit, and I'm very glad first that ICOMOS came back with this idea of looking at the shared heritage in Thailand, but also it's a good way again to highlight all of this heritage existing in not only in Bangkok, but also in Thailand upcountry. And it also helps paying tribute to the communities living around. Actually, this heritage helped also to highlight the life of Vietnamese living, for example, around Saint Xavier and Ratchathani Temple, the Chinese or Muslim around, well, along the Chao Phraya River, or even the Kudichin families in Thonburi. So a big concern actually of what's going on with this heritage in Thailand is still the lack of awareness about the shared heritage. It's often a question of education, and I will come back to that point, but it's also a deeply ingrained conflict, how Thailand is perceiving this heritage. It's a conflict between history itself, history interpretation, money, the public hand, versus the private hand. And of course, all of these institutions, lobbies, private entities mostly will fight around the way how to preserve heritage rather to cooperate about it. So, and of course, unfortunately, over the last 10 years, the fact that there is no real unity around this way to protect and adapt Bangkok European styles has translated into a lot of destruction. And I will talk about it. I will show you a few examples. So we start about the Supreme Court. So you've got the old building on the left and the new building on the right. The Supreme Court along Sanam Luang, the Royal Field, is a very interesting case of what I just mentioned about conflicting between, especially with history. It was built during the Pibun Songkram era, which is just after the 1932 revolution. The building reflects the principle of the People's Party of that time, the Kana Ratsadon Party in Thai. The architecture is very inspired on the left side by kind of fascist, national socialist architecture.
Indonesian president say cannot, the new link also not linked, it's really working. Click it also.
Maybe
Somehow still doesn't work for me, he said.
Can you give her the new
Yes, I
username?
give the new link.
But it works. I tried twice already. Okay, so
already.
and other people have
The access code as well as the passcode as well as the other one.
your password is one.
I try also, but he say this one cannot.
Should be because this whole site can work. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Go on. Sorry. Well, if it's recorded, you will be able to see it later, probably. So the architecture, I explained it a bit yesterday, but what you can see in this building are the 6 columns in the middle of the portico, which actually represented at that time the party's principles. I explained it yesterday: sovereignty, safety, prosperity, equality, freedom, and public education. It has been torn down in 2014 in an attempt to reinterpret history. Actually, it's a very controversial part of Thai history, and that explains why this building finally disappeared and has been replaced by what I would call a very dull neo-Ratanakosin style structure, which even breach the Ratanakosin conservation rules. Interesting, this is the Supreme Court. They are the one who are looking after the laws in Thailand, and they are the first one to break it as well. So, second example, this is the British Embassy. So you saw the building on the left, and you see how it was last week. It looked like last week. Yes, well, I suppose that if you go this week, it's still like that, unfortunately. So the disappearing of the British Embassy, the British decided to sell it to a real estate tycoon, big company. They own lots of hotels, shopping malls, etc. They will build probably the 85th or 86th shopping mall of Bangkok, and in between it stays totally empty. And they decided they said they would rebuild the embassy, but the first thing they did was to destroy it. Another example of a building which just disappeared. So the new Trocadero Hotel was the second oldest hotel. It was located in Yawarat. The hotel was built in 1922. So to celebrate its 100th anniversary, it has been destroyed last year and replaced by this extremely beautiful office building. So you see, the building was not in a good shape, but it could have been restored and been used as an office building as well. The owner also said that he would keep the spirit of the new Trocadero Hotel. You can see the kind of spirit he kept. Oops, sorry. And last but not least, this is the last building which disappeared. That was in April this year. The Scala Cinema Theatre. It was built in 1968, 69. But what you can see inside, on the left side, for example, the chandelier was Italian, actually. And it was the last glamorous cinema from the 60s where all the Bangkok cinema festivals happened. Internet connection is unstable, okay?
Right, just go on.
And you know for what it will be replaced? You got it, the 87th shopping mall of Bangkok. And it belonged to Chulalongkorn University. So, all to tell you that, of course, unfortunately, unlike many cities in Europe, or even countries such as Korea or Vietnam, the problem of Thailand, it has no law to protect heritage. Or if it has law, they're so lax that there is very, very little to be done. Unfortunately, also, the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration doesn't own the land in this country. They're just administrating it. So actually, everything is left to the private hands. And the administration is bowing most of the time to the most offering person. So protests from communities, architects, history and art lovers occur, but they generally do not weigh a lot in the balance. It's not almost the case. You can see that there was a project 6-7 years ago to build what was called the River Walk. It was a walkway along the Chao Phraya River. A lot of people protested because not only it would reverse the course of the river, because they would have put concrete pillars inside the river, but it would have hidden all the buildings on the surface. Fortunately, the administrative court decided to cancel the project. But as I know Thailand, it might come back in a few years' time. Actually, this project, which was supposedly a pedestrian walk, was designed as a highway, a tollway along the river, and they kept exactly the same plan. So the walk was like 30, 40 meters wide, just for pedestrians. So you would wonder why. Anyway, it has been canceled for the time being. So to come back to that, I just want to highlight that education is essential to preserve the shared heritage here. And, you know, it's not only, it's a pedagogic work to do, but it's not only for students. It's an education process to everyone, including the rich and powerful ones, the ones who have the possibility to turn down buildings and replace them. And it's time also to try to find a way. And I think that TV programs, social media have a very important role to play to highlight this heritage and to make people aware of it. So how to turn existing buildings, actually, that's the question we can ask, into valuable assets for both Thai locals and visitors, and to make them object of pride for everyone. First of all, there is this pedagogic work of highlighting that an old building can also bring money. It's sad to be so trivial, but it's true. That's also a way to preserve heritage. So you can see, for example, the Customs House, you see a rendering which is probably not the right one, but I couldn't find a more recent about the Customs House, which was built by Joachim Gracia, and which will be turned into a luxury hotel. So, for example, Charoen Krung could become the Bangkok Art and Shared Heritage District. So I'm sure that Kun Piraya will tell me, but there is already a creative district. It has been highlighted into a creative district, but it's a powerless one. Nothing changed. I went around 2 days ago to see what would be the change, but nothing has been done. To create a real Bangkok Art and Shared Heritage District, let's call it European Heritage District, would give a true identity to that district and help to preserve what can be done. And it could also be not only kept as well, but also extended to all the Chao Phraya River. And for example, I want to talk about Songwat Road in Yawarat, which actually was populated by traders. I'm sure that our Malaysian friend will say, oh, it looks very much like Penang and some Peranakan architecture. Actually, most of the traders who came from Malaya or Burma, and they settled there. So they rebuilt along Songwat Road. These were mostly Muslim traders. They rebuilt in Songwat Road exactly the same kind of building you could find in Singapore or even in Rangoon. The one on the corner with a corner in wood is more looking like a Burmese building than a Singaporean or Malayan building. So the kind of initiative that could be done to highlight this heritage is working with schools, like Kunpira does actually, universities, creating activities. And I must say that the EU was very much in favor of that. So the EU delegation in Bangkok would be very happy to work on a heritage festival, heritage days, even a European Christmas heritage in the European district. That could be quite fun to do. Additional trails with new themes, a better signage, creating an architecture center. Used to have one with the ASA, the Association of Siamese Architects, but it's gone. And tomorrow, that's a little bit of a wish, helping Bangkok to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site, because this Italian heritage is absolutely unique. So thank you very much for that. Now, that's the funny part of it. I try to go to my, to the other one. It will be very quick. Yes. It's to show you a bit of, okay, how can I, yes, that's this one. I'll show you a bit of this European heritage. I try to do it very quick because probably run a bit late, a bit behind schedule. So, okay, I explained it already. And what makes Bangkok so unique? I show you a bit of all of this architecture. So that's first starting Austria, Italy, and Siam. I took Austria because, as you know, Joachim Grassi, which is one of the first European architects to come to Bangkok, actually was not Italian. He was born Italian, but he was born in Austria because he came close from Trieste, and Trieste was an Austrian city at that time. So that's some of his work. Customs House, the Ministry of Defense, and Wat Niwet in Bang Pahin, near Bang Pahin Palace. Yet we come to Italy, and Italy, of course, had the most architects. There were over 10. So this is Wat Benjamabopit School next to the Marble Temple. It has been built by the Department of Public Works, actually, but totally Italian inspired. It looks like a Florence style mansion, actually. The amazing Ananta Samakom Hall, I was able to visit it myself inside. I was lucky at the time it was open to the public, but 10 Italians worked on it. So that's the largest group of Italians who were involved in that building, which was built from 1906 to 1915. So you've got Mario Tamagno, which was the most active in Thailand, Annibale Rigotti, Ercole Manfredi as architects. Engineers were Carlo Allegri, the one who built most of the bridges in Bangkok, Emilio Giovanni Golo, and you've got artists Cesare Ferro, Galileo Cini, Carlo Rigoli, sculptors Vittorio Novi and Rodolfo Nolli, to give their name. That's, for example, a fresco inside. You see an Art Nouveau with some Thai elements like the flowers. So that's another beautiful building which is not open anymore to the public. Abhishek Duzit from Mario Tamagno. That was the palace where King Rama V welcomed diplomats. And you see it's in Moorish style architecture, something that you know very well in Kuala Lumpur, for example. The government house called before Norasing House, it was built in Venetian Gothic. And you can see it's from 1926, actually quite late style. Ladawan Palace on the left, which is the Crown Property Bureau, was built by a guy called, we don't have his name, Bruno, J. Bruno, so maybe Giovanni or Giorgio, we don't know. It was built in 1906, and the Payatai Palace on the right, where the mother of King Rama VII used to live. It was built in 1922 by Mario Tamagno. So the Mahathir Uti Bridge, you know, the Weeping Bridge, we talked about it yesterday. The Panfalilat Bridge as well, this beautiful Art Nouveau style. Another beautiful building on the river, the Rajini School Seminary, Royal Seminary, which was built for girls. It's dating back from 1880. It's one of the oldest Italian heritage building here. So the beautiful Parosakawan Palace, I must say it's my favorite actually.
Mine too.
Mine too.
Yes, it's such a beautiful Art Nouveau palace. So it's Mario Tamagno in 1906. So you can remember the inside of it. So the Bangkok Prom Palace that we visited, the Bangkok, Thailand, from 1901, 1906, and Karl Siegfried Döring for the German part, 1913, 1915. The Marble Temple from Prince Narisara Nuwati with the support of Carlo Allegri and Mario Tamagno in 1900, Carrare Marble. The Dorman Long bridges around the temple. So that's what Ratchapokit with its Venetian architecture. I forgot to write it on my present. Oh no, I forgot to write it. But okay, you know it. What Ratchachiwat near Saint Xavier inside is Carlo Rigotti painting. It's also Prince Narisara Nuwati who designed it in Khmer style. Hualongpong Station from Mario Tamagno, inspired by the Stazione Portanova in Turin. Democracy Monument, I explained it largely yesterday. So the highlight of the new Ratchadamnon Avenue, 1937. Now Britain and Siam. So that's the Blue Elephant House, which used to be the Bombay Burma Trading, a Scottish company. It became the Thai Chinese Chamber of Commerce in 1930. It was built in 1903. So, of course, the Chakri Mahaprasad Throne Hall, built by John Pennis, Singaporean, British. It's quite old, 1876, 1882, and it is inspired by the Parliament House in Singapore, the design, the bottom. Typically shared heritage. Queen Victoria, I heard that she might come back inside the shopping mall and look after people buying at Zara and all Hermes and whatever. So she will be back, this one. She was inside, the garden of the British Embassy. So the Memorial Bridge that we will visit tomorrow, but from 1929, 1932. Interestingly, it's the last royal commissioned infrastructure to Europeans. So it's the Dorman Long Company, to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Chakri dynasty. The Dorman Long built the Sydney Harbour Bridge. The post office, why it's not really British in style, it's always Italian inspired, but these are the British who brought the post office system. That's the first post office in Bangkok. However, it's a mock-up. Interesting story, it has been destroyed in 1984 to be rebuilt in 2004. But as there was not enough money, it has been rebuilt on a smaller scale. And inside there is nothing. You can go to the top of it. I think now they put some photos of stamps. Saragon Palace is from Henry Alabaster, which was Vice Consul of Britain. The music kiosk is French. Another building is the Manankasila Mansion from a very important British architect called Edward Hilley. He built quite a lot of buildings in Bangkok, and this one is Tudor Revival, 1925. He built also the Vajiravut College Assembly Hall, 1925. Also a shared heritage building, mixed of Thai and European Gothic Tudor style. The competition, Chulalongkorn Faculty of Arts, but it's built by Edward Hilley in 1915-1919. Competition to Silpacord and not to us. But friendly competition, I would say. So somewhat road again with this British architecture, and except that the Luang Kocha Isaac Mosque, which is in Italian style. The British Club that you wanted so much to visit, but which is only open if you do a request long time in advance, but typical Singapore style building actually, or even Malaya style building, this grand clubs building. It was built in 1910. So France did not have a very good connection with Siam, but despite this not very good connection, because we made war to Siam at some point, we were also included in the French participate a bit in the architecture. For example, the state statue of Rama V, which is the first equestrian statue, when you can see a king on a horse. It was done by two sculptures from France in 1908. The residence of the ambassador of France, so you won't be able to go inside, but that's it, dating from 1875. The ground was given in 1850, approximately, to the French. It used to be warehouses there. The Assumption Cathedral, which was built around 1910, and which is Romanesque revival. We've got a lot of churches in France, you know. If you've been to Paris, the most famous one, or if you saw the movie Amélie Poulain, the Montmartre Cathedral, the Montmartre Church is very similar to that. This one was not built by French, but it was built by a British, Howard Erskine, coming from Singapore. But that was the Banque d'Indochine, so the French bank. Next to it, it's a modern building, used to be the Bank of Hong Kong and Shanghai, the HSBC, but it has been demolished in the 1980s. Okay. So that's the Red Cross building. In both are revival in typical French style of official buildings. It was built by the Department of Public Works. Oh gosh. A flooding in Bangkok? It's normal. So the Wichita Placid Fort, it's one of the part of the fortification around the Chao Phraya River, and it was started in 1685 by a French engineer, Chevalier de la Mare. And it was upgraded in the 18th century and 19th century. So the John Sampson Emporium that you visited, King Prajadeepak Museum, built by Charles Beguelin in 1906. And Charles Beguelin also built this Saint Gabriel College near Saint Xavier Church in 1920. Then Ratchadamnon Avenue, which was modeled after the Champs-Élysées. And you know, the lane in the middle with the park actually were done as bicycle lanes for the royal family. That was brand new at that time. Germany, Deutschland und Siam. So this building that we will visit tomorrow is actually the first department store in Thailand, and it was Falcon Beldek department store. It was owned by the Germans until the end of World War I. That's Siam OP today. Sarangram Palace was built by Egon Müller in 1868. It was one of the oldest, and it has been rebuilt after by Italians. So the Kaldering extension of Bankunprom in Jugendstil style. Another Kaldering palace that you need also to make an inquiry. It might take a bit of time. It's the Palace of Prince Damrong. That's the Varadis Palace, which is a typical Jugendstil Art Nouveau style building from 1910, I believe. So that's inside of it. And that's also some of the details, the Art Nouveau details, which are quite amazing as well. Also Kaldering. And the Thonburi train station was done by Kaldering. This is not the original one. It has been rebuilt in the 1950s. So we go to Portugal. We will visit that area tomorrow. That's the Kudijin area with Santa Cruz Church. This is where the Portuguese Thai community is living. And okay, the Kalawar Church was also a Portuguese church originally, but it was rebuilt by, I think, Mario Tamayo in 1898. But inside the stained glasses, to me, that's the most beautiful church in Bangkok, are French. They were done by French glass makers. That's the Christ that they built that they bring back from Ayutthaya. When Ayutthaya was burned down, they brought the statue of this Portuguese-made Christ into the Kalawar Church. It's only open on request, so I was lucky to see it. And the embassy, the Portuguese embassy, which was built in 1860, between 1860 and 1875, quite typical Peranakan style architecture, actually. More Malay, Sino-Portuguese style. And St. Xavier Church, which was rebuilt by a French in 1860. It was modernized then. So the other nations, because yeah, Siam was open to anyone. We saw it 3 days ago. That's Belgium with the Saab crossroad. Also, they bring the company running the tramway in Bangkok was Belgian, and the Thai-Belgian bridge, which was the first flyover. And actually, they brought back from Brussels. The bridge stand in Brussels and they reconstructed in Bangkok. Denmark was very much involved into trade. Actually, the Oriental Hotel, the warehouses from Asiatic, all belonged to Hans Niel Andersen, a captain, who was Danish. He is the one who created the Oriental Hotel at that time, and the East Asiatic building on the top. The East Asiatic building was there until the late 80s. That was still the headquarters of this East Asiatic company. I think that's all. Yeah, you know, Holland, I'm sorry. Holland, with Ban Holland in Ayutthaya, the sluice gates near Onut, and the Hog Bridge, which is a mock-up bridge, actually, but in Dutch style. It was built not so long ago. I think it was built in the 70s. And outside Bangkok, just to give you a highlight, Lampang. Lampang is in northern Thailand, next to Chiang Mai. To my opinion, it's far prettier than Chiang Mai, actually. A lot of Burmese traders were there for the teak wood. So a lot are British India, Burmese inspired. Which to my opinion is an absolutely beautiful town, has the most teak wood mansions in Thailand. It has something like 100 mansions in teak wood, and you've got something like 10 beautiful palaces like this that you can visit. It's between Lampang, near not so far away from Lampang. Also teak wood. Chiang Mai used to be the British consulate, the Anantara Hotel. Sakon Nakhon in Isan, so northeast, near to the Laotian border, near to Nakhon Phanom. There were Vietnamese communities who fled away from the French. I don't know why they fled away, because they're so nice people. But at that time they were persecuted, so they settled in Thailand and they recreate a village. I think it's, I forgot the name just now, but this village is in typical Indo-Chinese French style, Sakon Nakhon. Nong Khai, which stand across Vientiane, has a lot of French-inspired houses, because yeah, France was a modern country, so the Thai built in the same way. So along the Mekong River, in Nong Khai, you've got a couple of very beautiful French mansions. So Ayutthaya, you saw that church, probably, St. Joseph Church. You've got a lot of churches built by mix of French and Italians. Samut Songkhram is probably for me, that's the most beautiful church there. 60 kilometers away from Bangkok. Nakhon Phanom with this almost Neuschwanstein fantasy castle, fairy tale castle, built by Italians for King Rama VI. Phetchaburi was once again Carl Doering. with this beautiful, probably the most beautiful Art Nouveau style palace. It's a military palace, and you can visit it, but you can't take picture inside. I don't know why. Well, maybe they changed. But when I went,
But I did.
oh, okay. But when I went 8 years ago, it was not allowed.
Oh,
Maybe they
okay.
changed now.
Göring was especially, this picture was especially from his hometown in Darmstadt,
Yeah, Darmstadt, yes, very inspired.
which is now World Heritage Site, Mathedenhöhe.
Mhm.
It's really,
Okay, oh, yeah. And finally, well, the Pratchett Puritan in Wahine Palace, which was built for Rama IV, I believe. Yeah, which is a beautiful, also mix of Art Nouveau in Italian style.
Oh,
Palace.
Rama VI.
Rama VI, sorry. Chantaburi, which is also one of the most famous cathedral. Chantaburi is a typical French city because French occupied that part of Thailand for a while. Chantaburi and Trat. It was called Chantaboun in French. And Phuket, with its beautiful Peranakan style Sino-Malay architecture. People from Penang moved into Phuket, so you've got this inspired mansions, but they have great mansions there. And Songkhla city, which is also a very Sino-Malay city and a beautiful heritage town. It's near Hat Yai. Everybody goes to Hat Yai, not really for the heritage, but Songkhla is the town to visit for people who love heritage. That's it. And Narathiwat, this is where the agreement was signed between Britain, Malaya, British Malaya, and Thailand, which fixed the border between Siam and Malaya at that time.
The Anglo-Sign Treaty.
Yes. So that's it. Thank you very much.